She waited until our daughter crossed the stage, then leaned in close and whispered that she wanted a divorce. My name is Eric Holloway. I'm 48. I live in Gilbert, Arizona, east of Phoenix, near the Santon Village Mall. I've worked as a senior estimator at a construction firm in Mesa for the past 15 years. I've been married to Lauren for 22 years. We have one daughter, Olivia. She turned 18 last month. We live in a beige 2-story house on a quiet cul-de-sac off East Elliott Road. Sprinklers run Mondays and Thursdays. HOE newsletters pile up on the kitchen counter. Most Saturdays I mow the lawn, wash the F-150, and drink bad gas station coffee while checking the weather app on my phone. That night, Friday, May 17th, we were sitting in the gymnasium at Hamilton High. The air smelled like floor polish and too much perfume. Folding chairs creaked. The buzz of phone cameras and polite applause filled the room. I'd sat in that same gym years ago, back when Olivia was 7. She was in the winter play. A snowflake. Nervous. She'd held my hand so tightly her palm left marks. When they called her name, she walked onto the stage, eyes wide, scanning the crowd for me. Now, 11 years later, she walked tall, shoulders back, maroon gown swaying. I held my phone up to film her. That's when Lauren leaned in. Soft voice. No hesitation. She said, "I think we should separate. I've been unhappy for a long time." Not a tremble. Not a tear. She might as well have reminded me to take the trash out. I didn't turn my head. Didn't blink. Just kept the camera steady. Because even in that moment I knew. She thought she was in control. Worse, she thought she was untouchable. The crowd clapped. Olivia smiled. Lauren stood and applauded too, like she hadn't just severed 22 years with a whisper. After the ceremony, we took photos near the school sign. The Arizona sky was still warm and glowing orange, the pavement radiating back the day's heat. Lauren hugged Olivia. Kissed her cheek. Laughed with her parents. She didn't speak a single word to me. But she didn't know I'd already started watching. It began about a month earlier, Saturday, April 13th. Lauren said she was meeting a friend from work for brunch at Hash Kitchen in Chandler. She took the Civic and left around 10 a.m. At 10:43, I got a transaction alert from our joint credit card. Chevron. South Alma School Road. 2 energy drinks, a protein bar, a pack of mints. Doesn't sound like much, unless you zoom out. That Chevron shares a parking lot with a La Quinta Inn. I didn't say a word. 2 weeks later, Thursday, April 25th, another charge. The Cactus Moon Bar. She told me she had a late Zoom call that night. Came home at 9:15, in sweatpants, hair up, acting tired. Another time, I saw a flight confirmation pop up on her iPad. She said it was a training in Santa Fe. But the email wasn't addressed to her. It was for someone named Kevin. Same flight, same return date. She used our miles to book both. That's when I started collecting. Screenshots. Statements. Deleted messages she thought were gone. Every puzzle piece, logged and labeled. Because betrayal doesn't hit like a hammer. It creeps like water, steady, silent, filling up around you until you realize you're already underwater. And still, I said nothing. Lauren went on like normal. Tuesdays, Thai takeout. Saturdays, mulch talk and garden centers. She still laughed at the same stupid insurance commercials. But I saw it now. The casual lies. The fake yawns. The smug confidence in her voice when she thought I wasn't paying attention. She thought it was her move. But what I found out next, I'll never forget for the rest of my life. Monday morning, I left the house before sunrise. The air smelled like dust and watered lawns. Lauren was still upstairs. I didn't say goodbye. Just grabbed my lunch and slipped into the truck. At 6:30 a.m., I pulled into the dirt lot behind the construction firm on Main Street. Same building I'd driven to for 15 years. But now I stayed only till noon. Last month, I'd picked up a second shift, evenings, sorting freight at the Amazon warehouse off Loop 202. Lauren didn't know about that. I told her I was working reduced hours. Budget cuts, I'd said. She nodded, barely looked up from her phone. That suited me fine. The night shift gave me time, and freedom. And eyes on her schedule. At noon, I drove straight to Safeway. Not for groceries, just a hunch. Lauren had mentioned, in passing, that she might drop by the pharmacy around lunchtime. Said she was picking up something for her mom. I parked in the shade of a dying tree near the lot entrance. Let the engine die. Sat in the stillness. 15 minutes passed. Then I saw her Civic roll in and slide into a spot near the side entrance, not the pharmacy. She stepped out. No rush. Sunglasses, hair neat. The Lauren I used to admire just for walking. She walked toward the small cafe area at the front of the store, 4 metal tables under yellowed umbrellas. He was already there. Flannel shirt. Cargo shorts. Gray in his beard. She smiled when she saw him. That same little smile she used to give me when I'd come home with takeout on Fridays. They sat close. Talked. Then she reached across the table and touched his wrist. That did it. Because in that split second, my mind threw me back, 8 years ago. Olivia's science fair. Lauren and I sat at one of those fold-out cafeteria tables, hands brushing. She looked at me and whispered, "You're a good dad, you know that?" And I believed her. Now she was saying God knows what to another man. With the same eyes. Same tone. Same hand. They laughed. He leaned in. And I stayed in the truck. Not breathing. Not blinking. 12 minutes. Then she stood up, adjusted her purse strap, and walked out. Alone. I waited until she was gone. Then I stepped inside. The man was still there, sipping something cold from a plastic cup. Eyes down on his phone. Relaxed? Like he didn't just help dismantle a family. I walked right past. Didn't stop. Didn't flinch. That night, around 8:15, Lauren came through the front door like it was any other Monday. She said, "I stopped by Mom's. Picked up her prescription. Oh, and I bumped into Paula at Safeway." I said, "How's she doing?" She said, "Still loud." And she laughed, genuinely. Like the day had been long, but fine. That was the moment. She lied. Right to my face. And smiled doing it. She wasn't scared. She was confident. She believed I'd never suspect a thing. That I was still blind. Still slow. Still hers. I smiled back. I said, "Well, glad you made it home early." She went upstairs to shower. Humming. Later that night, when the house was quiet and dark, I slipped into the garage. Opened the Civic. Slowly. Quietly. 2 weeks ago, I'd tucked an AirTag under the passenger seat. Not the kind you buy in a store, one I'd built myself, with an encrypted backup. No one else knew it existed. I checked the tracker. Between 12:09 and 12:31 p.m., her car had been parked at Safeway, exactly where I saw her. But there was more. A short drive later, at 12:38 p.m., she'd stopped at a cul-de-sac 6 blocks west. No shops. Just homes. One stood out, a low stucco house with a red Ford in the driveway. Same red Ford the first saw parked behind her mystery date. I zoomed in on the satellite view. Took a screenshot. Saved the address. It wasn't just lunch. It wasn't just a mistake. It had structure. Frequency. A hiding place. And now, a name and location. I closed the app. Tucked the AirTag log into a private backup. Then I slipped back into bed, careful not to wake her. She turned once. Mumbled. Reached for the blanket. I lay still. She had no idea. Because I wasn't just watching anymore. I was mapping every move. And what I'd do next would change everything. If someone had told me what would happen next, I wouldn't have believed them. Tuesday morning came quiet. Lauren was in the kitchen early, fixing Olivia's lunch. Peanut butter green apple slices, one of those protein bars she always said were too processed, but packed anyway. I watched from the hallway. Not like a husband. Like a stranger. I drove Olivia to school. Lauren said she had errands, dry cleaning, oil change. Maybe Target. I nodded. I said, "Text me if you need anything." She said, "You're sweet. But I'm good." She kissed my cheek and shut the door. Like always. I didn't go to work. Instead, I drove to the cul-de-sac. The house with the red Ford. Parked 2 blocks away. Walked. Hoodie up. Sunglasses. Just another guy taking a Tuesday stroll in Mesa. From across the street, I could see a set of sliding glass doors, a patio chair, and someone's gray hoodie hanging from a hook. Curtains half drawn. I waited. At 10:42, Lauren's Civic pulled into the driveway. She got out. Didn't knock. Just went inside. That was it. No more guessing. No more ifs. I walked back to the truck and drove toward Chandler. I needed air. And time. Pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour diner I used to go to before Olivia was born. Inside, I sat at the far booth by the window. The waitress, Denise, same as always, said, "Damn, haven't seen you in years." I said, "Been working a lot." She said, "Coffee?" I nodded. The coffee was burnt. The eggs overcooked. The silence useful. I thought about Lauren's face that morning. Casual. Relaxed. No cracks in her voice. She was good. Too good. Back at home, I made sure to delete all search history from my phone. I ordered a burner, prepaid, untraceable, shipped to the Amazon locker near my second shift. Then I backed up the AirTag logs again. And changed the lock screen code on my MacBook. Small things. But everything mattered now. That night, she came home late. Claimed traffic. She smelled like soap and someone else's cologne. I said, "Olivia asked about you. Wanted to show you her art project." She said, "I know. I'll make it up to her tomorrow." And she smiled. Genuinely. Like nothing was wrong. I almost believed it. Almost. The next morning, I told Lauren I was heading to a supplier jobs site in Gilbert. Instead, I parked near Olivia's school, waited until she went in, then drove back across town. The red Ford was gone. The house looked quiet. At 11:06, Lauren's Civic appeared again. But this time, she didn't get out. She parked. And waited. A few minutes later, another car pulled up behind her. Gray Altima. Woman driver. Blonde. Maybe late 30s. Smiling. Lauren got out, walked to the passenger side, and slid in. They drove off together. That was new. I didn't follow them. Instead, I circled the block once, parked, and walked up to the house. It looked empty. But the side gate wasn't locked. I walked in. The backyard was dry. Unkempt. A few scattered kids' toys. A grill missing its lid. I stepped closer to the sliding glass door. There was a camera above it. But dead. Wire cut. That told me something. I knocked once. Nothing. Then again. I didn't expect anyone. But the door opened. Not all the way. Just a few inches. A man stood there. Thin. Worn hoodie. Unshaven. Maybe early 40s. He looked me up and down and said, "You got the wrong place, man." I said, "I don't think so." He looked nervous. Glanced past me toward the street. Then I saw it, over his shoulder. On the coffee table. A wine glass. A silver ring. Lauren's ring. I didn't say another word. Just turned and left. Back in the truck I sat with my hands on the wheel. The other man I could have predicted. But this? This was no random affair. This was something else. Multiple people. Different places. Coordinated. And now, a third party I hadn't accounted for. I came looking for a lie. But I just walked into something deeper. And I wasn't sure I was the one still in control. Thursday morning felt colder than usual. Not in temperature. In tone. Lauren left early, claiming her friend Rebecca needed a ride to a dental appointment. No good morning kiss. No smile. Just a tossed, "See you tonight," as she grabbed her purse and slipped out the door. I didn't answer. That was the first day I stopped pretending. At 9:15, I logged into my work portal, filed a half-day personal leave, and drove to the Amazon warehouse. Not for the shift. I had a favor to ask. A guy named Caleb worked nights on loading dock 3. Mid-40s. Navy vet. Quiet, sharp, didn't talk much. But I knew from lunch breaks that his cousin worked in private surveillance. Legit, licensed. I found Caleb outside the break room, sipping a vending machine Coke. I said, "Need something off the books." "Quiet." He looked me over and said, "What kind of quiet?" I said, "I need someone followed. 2 people. Maybe more." He nodded slowly. He said, "You got a burner?" I pulled it from my pocket. He said, "Text me the names. Photos if you got 'em. Keep it simple. I'll pass it on." I did. And left. On the way home, I passed the street near that second house again. This time, no red Ford. No gray Altima. Just silence and an overgrown lawn. Back home, I cleaned the garage. On purpose. I wanted to look busy if Lauren came back early, but also, I needed the distraction. I opened every box, labeled and relabeled things we hadn't touched in years. Found Olivia's old baby clothes. Her first soccer trophy. A wedding photo. In the picture, Lauren was leaning into me, cheek on my shoulder, hands locked together. Back then, I believed in everything we stood for. Now I stared at that photo and wondered who that version of her was. And whether she was ever real. That night, when she came back, she brought takeout. Panda Express. Our busy day dinner, we used to call it. She said. Thought Olivia would want orange chicken. I said. She's staying over at Katie's. She paused. She said. Oh. I forgot. I nodded and turned back to the kitchen sink. We ate in silence. She watched a show on Netflix while I sat on the porch, scrolling news, not reading it. Before bed she said, "You okay?" I said, "Just tired." She kissed me lightly. It felt like someone else's lips. At 2:03 a.m., I got a message on the burner. A single line. Target 1 stayed overnight. Left at 6:22 a.m. same house. I didn't reply. Just deleted the thread and rolled onto my back. Stared at the ceiling. Friday morning, I drove Olivia to school again. Halfway there, she asked. "Daddy, why do you and Mom talk so quiet now?" I said. "What do you mean?" She said. "Like, you used to laugh more. She used to sing in the car." I gripped the wheel tighter. I said, "Sometimes grown-ups get distracted. But it doesn't mean we love you any less." She nodded. Looked out the window. I felt something break inside me. After drop-off, I parked at a gas station 2 blocks away and cried. Not loud. Not long. Just enough. Later that day, while stopping at a Home Depot for a new toolbox, I ran into a guy I hadn't seen in 10 years. Rick Mason. Old coworker. He used to do HVAC inspections with me back when Olivia was a toddler. He said, "Hey man! How's Lauren?" I said, "Good, I guess. Still pretending we're married." He laughed. He said, "I thought you guys split up. Saw her a few weeks back. She was in Scottsdale, outside that fancy watch store. With some guy. Thought it was a new boyfriend." I said, "What did he look like?" He said, "Tall. Tan. Military haircut. Kinda stiff." She looked comfortable. I smiled politely. Nodded. Said I had to go. But inside something shifted. I'd never seen that man before. And he didn't match either of the two I already knew about. That night, Lauren came home late again. Said, "Sorry. Rebecca's kid had a meltdown." I said, "You're a good friend." She smiled. But her eyes didn't match her lips. That was the last time I let her kiss me without looking her in the eyes. I thought I was tracking one lie. Now I saw 3 people, 3 stories, none of them matching. And the worst part? I was starting to think. Lauren wasn't just cheating. She was planning something. And someone else was helping her do it. Saturday started like any other. Lauren made pancakes. Olivia ate half, left the rest. I took my coffee black and stayed quiet. But Lauren was watching. She said, "You sleep okay?" I said, "Not really." She said, "Work stuff?" I nodded. But my eyes said something else. And she caught it. At noon, she took Olivia to the community pool. I stayed home, said I needed to fix the gutters. Instead, I printed 3 photos. Blurry, but clear enough. Lauren at the house with the red Ford. Lauren getting into the gray Altima. And Lauren arm in arm with a tall, square-jawed man in front of a luxury watch store. Photos sent to me by Rick. I put the photos into a plain manila envelope and sealed it. Inside, I also placed a handwritten note. "You're not as careful as you think. I know about the house. I know about him. And I know who helped you. This isn't about love anymore. It's about consequences." I didn't sign it. At 3:45 p.m., while Lauren and Olivia were still gone, I drove across town to her mother's condo. I knew she wasn't home. She was in Phoenix for the weekend. I slipped the envelope under her front door. Then I waited. That night, Lauren came home as if nothing had changed. But I noticed the stiffness in her shoulders. She was quiet at dinner. Checked her phone more than usual. She said, "My mom said her neighbor saw someone snooping near her place today." I said, "Weird." She looked at me. Not suspicious. Not yet. But something in her gaze had shifted. Like a player realizing the game was no longer predictable. At 9:18 p.m., while she was in the shower, I received another message from Caleb's cousin. "Altima lady dropped Lauren at storage unit again. Waited outside. 42 minutes. Lauren left carrying a blue file box. Put it in her trunk. Then they drove to 402 East Holbrook. Left the box there." I didn't recognize the address. Looked it up. It was a co-working space. Shared offices for consultants, accountants, and freelancers. What kind of freelancer needs a burner phone, 2 accomplices, and secret file boxes? Sunday, I went to church with Olivia. Lauren claimed a headache. In the church parking lot, I saw a car I recognized, the gray Altima. Parked near the side exit, half hidden behind a line of shrubs. Coincidence? Maybe. After the service, I asked Olivia to wait in the foyer while I walked back to the parking lot. The Altima was gone. That night, after dinner, Lauren finally asked. She said, "Is something wrong with you lately? You're different." I said, "Maybe I'm just seeing things clearer." She said nothing. But her knuckles whitened around the edge of the wine glass. Monday morning, I called in sick to both jobs. Drove across town to 402 East Holbrook. It was quiet. Mostly tech guys and part-time tax agents walking in and out. But around 11:40, a man stepped out I recognized immediately, square jaw, military haircut. Same man from the photo outside the watch store. He carried a briefcase. Wore a crisp white shirt and khakis. Not cheap. He looked prepared. I followed him. He drove north for 10 minutes, pulled into a dry cleaner's strip mall, then went into a private mailbox store. I waited. Watched. He came out with a manila folder. Looked both ways. Then left. I snapped 2 photos. Later that night, Lauren didn't speak much. She wasn't angry. She was calculating. After Olivia went to bed, I walked into the living room. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling her phone. I said, "You ever been to Holbrook?" She looked up slowly. She said, "What's that supposed to mean?" I said, "It's a simple question." She stared for a long moment. Then said, "I think you're trying to make me paranoid." I said, "No. I think you made yourself paranoid. I'm just giving it shape." She stood up. Walked past me without a word. Upstairs. Door closed. I heard the lock click. She'd never locked the bedroom before. That night I didn't sleep. Because now, for the first time, she wasn't sure if she was ahead of me, or behind. And that fear. It was the beginning of the end. I didn't go to work Monday or Tuesday. Lauren barely spoke. She moved around the house like a ghost, cautious, controlled. At night, she stayed on her side of the bed, scrolling her phone until 2 a.m. Whatever mask she used to wear, it was cracking. On Wednesday morning, she told me she had to take her mother to a specialist in Glendale. I said, "You told Olivia your mom was out of town." She froze. Then smiled forced. She said, "I meant she's back now. Came back early." I didn't respond. I just nodded. She left by 9:30 a.m. 15 minutes later, I followed. I didn't go to Glendale. I went to 402 East Holbrook, the co-working building where she'd left that blue file box days earlier. I waited in the car until I saw the man again, military haircut, white shirt, walk in. Then I followed him. But I didn't enter. Instead, I walked around back and waited by the dumpsters. 20 minutes later, the back door cracked open. A woman came out, not Lauren, not the Ultima driver. She carried the blue file box. She placed it in the trunk of a dark green Subaru, then stepped back inside. I didn't move. When she left, I approached the car. The trunk wasn't locked. I lifted the lid, slid the box toward me, opened it. Inside were documents, tax forms, payment receipts, bank statements. Not for Lauren. Not for the man. But for me. My name. My social security number. My employment history. Everything, copied, organized, tabbed. There were also 2 manila folders labeled Dissolution Strategia. Custody Statement Draft. And then I saw it, a third folder. Medical Proxy, Olivia Grant. I froze. Inside was a pre-filled medical power of attorney form. Listing Lauren, and another man, not me, as Olivia's proxy guardians in case of my incapacity or death. I nearly vomited. This wasn't just betrayal. It was preparation. She was building a world where I no longer existed. I put everything back, closed the trunk, walked back to my car, and drove home in complete silence. That evening, she came home smiling. Too bright. Too friendly. She said, "My mom says hi. She wants us to come by this weekend." I said, "Sure." She watched me, waiting. Then she said, "Everything okay?" I said, "Yeah. Just tired." She leaned in, kissed my cheek. Her lips were ice. That night, I sat at the kitchen table long after everyone went to bed. I spread out 3 burner phones, the USB stick with Caleb's photos, and my notebook. There were still gaps. Who was the man? Why the medical form? Why the shared mailbox? At 12:41 a.m., my burner buzzed. A single photo. Sent by the surveillance team. Lauren. At a hotel bar. Laughing. Not with the military man. But with someone new. A woman. Blonde, mid-40s, sharp suit, expensive taste. The text underneath. New contact. Deep familiarity. Suggest extended relationship. I stared at the image. I'd prepared for lovers. For theft. Even for custody battles. But this was different. The second woman. The documents. The proxies. Something didn't add up. And then I remembered something Olivia once said. Months ago. I was making dinner, and she came into the kitchen and asked, Daddy, if you went to heaven, would Mommy be in charge of my school and my room? I asked. What do you mean? She said. Mom said not to worry, because she has a backup plan. At the time, I laughed it off. Now, my hands were shaking. This wasn't about divorce. This wasn't about betrayal. It was a transition. And I was the obstacle. I knew, if I didn't act now, she'd finish what she started. The next morning, I met with a new attorney. Her name was Margaret Hale, a former military prosecutor, now family law expert in Mesa. She looked like a librarian, spoke like a sniper. She flipped through the file I'd brought, the storage unit docs, surveillance photos, financial records, the guardianship draft. Then she pushed it aside and said, "This isn't divorce. It's a purge. She's erasing you. You're lucky you caught it now." I said, "I don't want revenge. I just don't want to be erased, especially not from my daughter's life." She said, "Good. Then we don't attack head-on. We dismantle." Over the next 10 days, we filed a motion to review custody, a financial audit, and a formal complaint regarding attempted guardianship fraud. Quietly, Margaret also filed a grievance with the Arizona Bar Association against Jennifer Knox, citing conflict of interest and misuse of legal standing. At 5:20 p.m. Friday, Lauren was served. Right as she picked Olivia up from school. At 6:07, she stormed through the front door. She said, "Are you out of your mind?" I said, "This is a response. You've been building another life. Now I'm just acknowledging it." She opened her mouth to argue, then stopped. For the first time, she had nothing to throw back. 2 weeks later, we went to court. She came with Jennifer, calm, composed, fake confidence. But the judge had already reviewed everything. The proxy documents, hidden accounts, photos, a letter from Olivia's school counselor. Then Margaret called a surprise witness. The woman from the co-working space, the one who had carried the file box. She was a bookkeeper. Said Lauren offered her cash for silence about the records. The courtroom froze. The judge sat still. When the decision came down, full physical and legal custody awarded to me. Joint assets frozen. Supervised visitation only for Lauren. Formal investigation into financial misconduct. And a professional review of Jennifer's license. As people began to leave the courtroom, I turned and looked at Lauren. She sat alone. Jennifer was gone. Hair undone. Mascara running. She reached for her phone, hands trembling, but no one answered. She looked at me once. But I didn't smile. Didn't gloat. I stood. Buttoned my jacket. Walked out. On the courthouse steps, Margaret stopped me. She said, "You should see this. It came in late last night. I didn't want to distract you earlier." She handed me a document. It was Olivia's birth certificate. I read it. My last name was there. But the field for father was blank. At the bottom, a handwritten amendment. Submitted 2 months ago. Margaret said. She filed to have father unknown entered in your place. The court rejected it. But the attempt. She didn't finish. She didn't have to. I felt nothing. No rage. Just quiet understanding. This was never about emotion. It was always a plan. Outside, the sky was soft. Olivia ran into my arms. She asked, "Is it over now?" I said, "It is." I didn't scream. I didn't threaten. I waited. And when the time came, I ended it. Cold. Precise. Final. Subscribe if you want more stories. About real men who don't scream. They act. Coldly. To the end.